it's a war going on outside. No player is safe from. Okay? It's a real big storm brewing. And things are getting pretty interesting in the National Football League. We're going to break it all down here on the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. As always, so without any further ado, let's get to the proceedings this evening. Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 142nd installment of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. It's been a while, hasn't it? Can I keep it a buck with y'all? Can I keep it? Matter of fact, can we keep it a buck and some change? I missed you guys. I really, really did. Kind of got busy doing a bunch of things. Hell, life comes at you fast. Okay, a wise man once told me, life comes at you fast. I got engaged since the last time we talked. Manscaped approached me and said, hey, does your balls stink? And Coming to America 2 came out. And I got a lemon pepper freestyle from Drake. Life's good. So we got a lot of things to talk about today on the show. Before we get to anything dealing with the National Football League, we got to first talk about Coming to America 2. So, for those of you who don't know, Coming to America, the original, back in 1988, one of my favorite movies of all time. To me, one of the best comedy movies ever made. It's a top 5 movie, any genre for me. Okay, obviously, that may not be for you. But if we're talking about comedy movies, it's the best. I don't think anything tops Coming to America, the original movie. The cast was phenomenal. The storyline was outstanding. And Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall were absolutely tremendous in their various roles throughout the movie. That's one of those movies that's just a timeless classic. You can quote lines from it 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, and it never gets old. And so it kind of had this cult following that a lot of people kind of gravitated towards. And even Eddie Murphy himself admitted, like, look, my biggest movies were the Beverly Hills Cop movies, but the biggest cult following movie was Coming to America. And he's like, look, I go out on Halloween and I don't see anybody dressing up like Axel Foley, but you've got people dressed up like characters from Coming to America. So he understood the impact of the movie, hence why he wanted to do a second movie, a sequel. I think, honestly, he did the sequel based off of the strength of the success of I Am Dolomite. If you haven't watched that, that is a fantastic movie. Eddie Murphy at his best, a great cast, a well-done movie. If you haven't seen I Am Dolomite, you should treat yourself to an excellent movie. And it's the biography, essentially, loosely based biography of Rudy Ray Moore, who played Dolomite. That was his big role in Hollywood. Anyway, I digress. That really revived the career of Eddie Murphy. Before that, there were a bunch of bad movies. Like, it's funny. I was talking to one of my best friends, and she didn't really understand why Eddie Murphy kind of just fell off of a cliff. There were a lot of bad movies in there, man. I mean, what was it? Meet Dave, 1,000 Words. I mean, there's a lot. I actually liked Bowfinger, but a lot of people like Bowfinger's trash. There's a Metro. There's a lot of bad Eddie Murphy movies in there, man. He started out hot, 48. What was it? Beverly Hills Cop. You had the Golden Child. What was the movie with Nick Nolte? It was like 2 or 3 of those. 48 Hours or what? I forgot the name of that damn movie. But yeah, the couple of cop movies he had with Nick Nolte. Coming to America. I mean, he couldn't miss for a stretch there. And then, it was Dr. Dolittle And then I think everything kind of went downhill after that. So I Am Dolomite revived his career. And I think off the strength of that, he was able to then parlay that into an opportunity to do Coming to America 2. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was very apprehensive at the thought and the notion that another Coming to America, what are we talking, 32 years later, is going to be released. I wasn't really looking forward to this sequel. It was one of those things, hey, just leave it alone. This thing is great just the way it is. Don't tarnish the legacy of this movie. Just leave it alone. But obviously, they had other ideas. And so you get a different director, you get a bunch of different actors, and they try to recreate the magic. And we knew they weren't going to be able to do that. So I wasn't upset about, because I went in with lowered expectations. Lowered expectations. And shout out to a couple of viewers that hit me up. My man Calvin hit me up. Also, Dark Man hit me up. Appreciate y'all. And said, look, I already seen the movie. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it is what you thought it was, which was it's going to be a good movie. It's not funny. And so I said, okay, we'll see. I went into this thing just saying I had one prerequisite for this movie. One, it didn't have to be funny. I didn't expect it to live up to the hype, and I wasn't going to put that type of pressure on this production. I wasn't going to do that because it's impossible to follow up that act and do it 32 years later. If they would have put this thing out 12 years later, maybe they would have had a chance. And you know, the thing that I was also really pleasantly surprised about was that just about the entire cast was still alive. You know, you do something 32 years later, separate from each other, a lot of people start dropping off like flies, and pretty much the only three characters that they didn't have from the first movie in the second movie was Daryl, her sister, Lisa's sister, and Madge Sinclair, which was the mom. She passed away. She was the only person that passed away. Everyone else was still alive and able to do this sequel, but they didn't put Daryl nor Lisa's sister in the movie. I would have liked to have seen both of them make some type of cameo, but that's nor here nor there. Bottom line is, Darkman and Calvin were both right. The movie was a well-done movie. I didn't have any problems with the movie. The plot was very predictable. I didn't love the plot, didn't love how predictable it was. I saw it coming a mile away. Who didn't know after the first time he talked to his groomer that he was going to fall in love with her? Bottom line is, I don't want to tell you the movie. I don't want to spoil the movie for you. But, and that was a spoiler alert of sorts. However, we saw all of those things coming. My biggest issue with the movie was it did, and I think it was either Calvin or Darkman that said it felt rushed. And there's a bit of that, feeling like it was a little rushed. I didn't think it was necessarily done in poor taste or judgment. It just wasn't all that funny. They tried, and I want to say it was Calvin and Darkman both said that they tried to force the funny on you. And there were spots where I felt like they tried to force it on you. But all in all, it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. It's not something that I need to watch again. I won't watch this movie 37 million times like I've done the original. I think it's a one and done for me. I've seen it once. It's cool. I don't need to watch it again. So my Coming to America 2 recap pretty much sounds like this. Good movie. Not that funny. Funny enough. Okay. I was pleased to see them try to tie in a lot of the older characters. You know, something that was really funny to me is the guys from the barbershop. They were already like 120 when the first movie came out. 32 years later, everybody else is aged. Eddie's, Akeem's got a son. Prince Akeem's got a son. He's 30. And these old farts at the barbershop, every single one of them are still alive. I mean, I get that they wanted to recreate the barbershop, and that was one of the funnier parts of the movie the first time around. But if you're going to keep everything else realistic, how about you keep that realistic too? I mean, those guys had to be 150 by the time they came back around the second time. But that's nor here nor there. I thought that there were a couple of standouts in the movie. One was Leslie Jones. I thought she was more of the comedic relief in the movie. She had a bunch of good lines, but I'm going to just leave it at this. If you haven't seen it, see it. Watch it. Check it out. If you've seen the original, you love the original, watch the second, and you formulate your own opinion. I don't want to tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do, and I don't want to steer you away from making your own decision on this. I can only speak for myself. Good movie, not funny, didn't live up to the comedic hype, but I didn't expect it to. It checked the one box that I put for it going into the movie, which was, hey, do not destroy the legacy of the original. It didn't. So we move on. So I did want to talk about that. And next episode, and I had guaranteed you, I'd promised you that we were going to talk free agency. So we're going to talk free agency on the next show. On Wednesday's show, we're going to talk free agency. I'm going to give you my top 23 NFL free agents. And I thought and the reason I didn't talk free agency today, it was because I thought we were going to get some clarity tomorrow. I thought we were going to find out what teams were going to franchise what players, and then we would be able to move on, and I would have a concrete list of guys that were going to hit the market. Seems like the NFL is going to do the same thing they did last year. Remember, there was no CBA in place last offseason. So there was this back and forth banter between the NFLPA and the NFL. And what ended up happening was they pushed back the deadline for franchise tag designations until right before the start of the new league year, like literally an hour. I think it was like an hour or a minute or something like that, right before the start of the new league year. So it seems like it's trending in that direction again, because the NFL still hasn't set a hard cap. It hasn't set a hard cap for the 2021 season. The union's like, hey, we kind of want to wait and see what that TV money is going to look like before we agree to anything. And the NFL is like, hey, we really would like it if we just could get a number here to work with. But they're still kind of holding out a little bit of hope as to fans getting back in the seats, because that's going to impact the revenue generated as well. So it's a fluid situation. I said all of that to say this, which comes back to my original point, is we're not going to know what teams are franchising players or not, other than the teams that go out and say, hey, we're slapping a franchise tag on X said player, like Denver did with Justin Simmons already. You got teams like Detroit, like Chicago, who have high profile wide receivers that I'd love to know whether you're going to slap the franchise tag on this guy or not, so we can include him in the discussion. Now we won't know. Those teams will have even longer to make a decision as to what they're going to do. And so it's going to be hard to kind of formulate a list, but I'm still going to do it anyway. Be on the lookout for that on Wednesday's show. With that said, I want to get to our first segment of the day. And you know what it is. You already know what it is. It's the Gem Droppin Session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind. Let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, LouieTeeNetwork. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, I want to talk about the new 17-game schedule, which seems inevitable at this point. So since the last time we've spoken, this 17-game schedule has gained even more steam and traction. I told you guys a long time ago, this 17-game season and schedule is coming whether we like it or not. And eventually, 17 is going to turn into 18. It's only a matter of time, okay? And maybe 18 will eventually turn into 20. I don't know. But 18 is where I think they're going to stop at some point. And then much like it used to be 14 games, and then they got to 16, and there was this long gap between when they decided to switch it from 16 to 17. I think we're going to see a long gap from 18 to whatever is next, if there's a next. So I don't think we're going to be at 17 for very long, is what I'm trying to tell you. But we're going to get to 17 first. There won't be an 18 before there's a 17. And so 17 game schedule for the NFL, I think, is going to be a realistic possibility in 2021. You know, they've been hinting at this. They've proposed it. I think they're going to pass it at these league meetings, and I think we're going to see a 17-game regular season schedule. And let's talk about how this all works and what it will do and how it will change the way that the postseason is set up. Not many changes because of how they've already set up the 7-team playoff in each conference. Not much is going to change from a playoffs perspective. Again, this is going to render some of the rules in the rule book, or excuse me, the records in the record books, a little funny. It's tough. You respect more about the guys that have done it with less games. So when you talk about O.J. Simpson rushing for 2,000 yards, he did it in 14 games. So that's impressive when you talk about it, and it holds a special place when you can say, hey, this guy did it in less games. So we're going to be able to say that about certain milestones with this extra game and potentially an 18th game down the road. We'll be able to say, hey, this guy did it in 16 games, not 17 or 18, but 17 game schedule. We already know how the 16 game schedule works. So it's a cycle. You play your own division, each team in your division twice. That accounts for 6 games. So we know that to be a fact. Then you have a division that everyone in the division plays inside of your conference. So I'll give you an example. Last year, the NFC East played the NFC. Nope, they played the NFC West. They played the NFC West. Nope. Did they play the West? 49ers. Yes, NFC West. NFC East played the NFC West last year. Okay, so every team in the division has to play every team in the NFC West. So that's 4 more games on your schedule, okay? Then every team in the division then has to play an AFC division, okay? So in the NFC East, for instance, the NFC East played the AFC North last season. So that was Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. So that's another 4 games, brings the grand total to 14. And then everyone in the division has to play a team, the 2 teams in the division that you didn't play in your conference. So again, NFC East played the NFC West last year. So the 2 divisions that they didn't play in the NFC conference were the NFC North and the NFC South. So what you have to do is where you finished in the division last season, you play the teams that matched you in their divisions finishing in that exact same spot. So for instance, Washington finished in last place in the NFC East in 2019. So in 2020, we played the 2 last place teams in the 2 divisions that we weren't playing, the NFC North and the NFC South. So we got the 2 worst teams in those divisions, Carolina being one and the other being the Minnesota. It wasn't Minnesota. It was the Detroit Lions. So those were the 2 teams that we played. So that gives you your total of 16. So in the 17 game schedule, the only difference, the only extra game will be from a team in the AFC. Okay. So you're going to be playing a division in the AFC. So everyone in your division is going to be playing the same division, but just like in the NFC where they're matched up with the team that finished in the same slot as them within their division the prior season, you're going to be matched up with that team in that division. So if you're playing, let's just say we go with the NFC East reference once again, and let's say that the AFC East is the team that that division would have to play in 2021. Okay, the Washington football team won the division in 2020, so they would play the division winner in 2020 in the AFC East, which is the Buffalo Bills. So Washington would get the Bills because both teams won the division last year. The second place team in that division, the Miami Dolphins, would play the second place team in the NFC East, which was the New York Giants. The third place team was the New England Patriots. They would play the Dallas Cowboys, and the last place team Philadelphia Eagles would play the last place team, that being the New York Jets. So that's how that would go. And then also another caveat, they would alternate home games each year. So the first year would start out with all AFC teams getting the home game. And every single one of these matchups that are teams from opposite conferences matching up with the division winners or the division slot where you finished, the AFC is getting the home game. Okay, so doesn't matter. Philadelphia is going to the Jets. All right, the Giants are going to Miami. Washington is going to Buffalo. Dallas is going to the Patriots. So that's how it would be set up in year one of this 17-game schedule. In the second year, in 2022, if this thing were to pass, in the first year of this would be 2021, which I surmise it will be. The next year, the NFC would then get the home game. So if that thing switches, let's say the NFC has already, they had to play the AFC East. So let's say the next year they had, that whole division had to play the AFC West. So the first place team, all those teams in that division would have to then travel to the NFC East game, home stadiums to play those games. And then the next year would go back to the AFC. Then the next year would go to the NFC, so forth and so forth. So you see how that goes. So that's how you would account for the extra game. It would be a non-conference game. So what the NFL is trying to do with this 17th game is they're trying to accomplish a couple of things. The first thing is we don't want this game to count towards a tiebreaker because, you know, when you start talking tiebreakers, when we start talking playoffs, obviously you start with head-to-head. Then we go to like opponents, records against like opponents. But after we get past that, if we're tied still, we start getting into conference records. And what you don't want to do is create a disadvantage where you're adding in another conference game and the balance of scales is tilted in one way or the other. So you just put this game outside of the conference so it doesn't even come into play when we start talking about tiebreakers. That's number one. Number two is if you're an NFC fan or you're an AFC fan, or let's say you live in an AFC city, but you're an NFC fan, you relocated, you don't get to see these teams very often. This will speed up that process a bit. If you're a Bills fan and you live in Washington, D.C., you don't get to see your team very often. So this is an opportunity for us to speed that process up, and maybe you'll get to see your team a lot more often than you would if you had to wait every 4 years for that division, those two divisions to play one another. So that's another thought process and idea behind doing it this way. But at the end of the day, it's all about revenue. You know, I could talk about all the ancillary reasons as to why this is being done, but at the end of the day, it's about more money. The NFL is looking to extract every single nickel, dime, penny, dollar, any kind of revenue they can generate. They're looking to extract it out of their product. And with COVID-19 happening last season, it really put a financial strain. I know. In terms of relativity, no, these guys are going to be just fine. They're billionaires. But the product that they're accustomed to cashing out after this season with, they didn't get last year. You know, they had to take a massive step back, and that's why the cap is in flux right now, and there's such a big discussion about that, is because the financial aspect of the NFL took a hit last year. Ratings were down a little bit. Obviously no butts in seats, no fans in concession stands, nobody using up the parking lot. So it was a lot of money that these owners lost last season due to COVID-19. So they're going to try, and I think that kind of, look, this was inevitable anyway. They were looking to try to continue to squeeze every bit of revenue they could out of their product. But I think last year's situation with COVID maybe sped this process up. And I think we're going to see this 17th game much sooner rather than later. I'm not excited about it, but I'm not against it. You know, I told you I'm an old man, get off my lawn type of fan. I prefer things, if they're not broken, to not be fixed. But again, I think 17 games means one less preseason game and one less preseason game. I think everyone will say and attest that they're looking forward to that. So we'll see what happens, and we'll keep our ears to the street to see if this 17th game becomes a realistic possibility in 2021. And so we'll see if that happens. So we'll transition to our next segment, but before we do, I got a read for you. I got a promo. So I was approached by Manscaped over the little, break that we had, and they blessed me with this beautiful box right here, as you see. And let me get this sheet out the way so you can see exactly. And this is some of their other products right here that you can get. But I'm gonna show you the stuff that they sent me. They sent me a beautiful box with all these goodies in it right here. All right. So I'm gonna go through them one by one and kind of talk about my favorite ones and what this Manscaped product is all about. Now, first of all, let me tell you a quick little story. All right. I would always joke with my girl about my balls. All right. Because I'm an active dude. All right. So my balls do get funky. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you're a man and you work out or you do anything strenuous, your balls stink. Okay, let's keep it a buck. So I would always go to the gym. I would take off my shorts, and whoo, it would be funky. All right, or as a wise woman once told me, the funk. All right. But she would always say, "Oh, you stink, you need to take a bath." And I would be like, "Man, my balls smell like mint julep." That was always the running joke. Mint julep. That's a damn lie, okay? My balls smelled like pure onions, all right? So the first thing I want to talk about is this box of goodies that Manscaped sent me. And the first thing is this ball deodorizer. So this right here, this little guy right here is an awesome product, especially when coupled with this crop reviver. So these are my go-to products right here. All right. You put the ball deodorant on after you get out of the shower. And look, first and foremost, if you put on deodorant, and I hope you're putting on deodorant, okay? Because just as your balls can get musty, so can your armpits. But you put on deodorant, right? So why aren't you putting any deodorant on your balls? It's the same concept. Bunch of hair down there. It's closed off from getting a lot of oxygen, and it can get really funky really quickly. So put on your deodorant, your ball deodorant, after you get out of the shower. Make sure you dry off thoroughly. Then if you're going to the gym or you're going to do something, just hit the crop reviver. Couple of sprays of that. Your money, okay? I can't tell you that I've put this thing through the ringer. That's part of the reason this podcast has been delayed and pushed back a bit, because I told you I would never steer you wrong. I'm never going to try to push something off on you guys that I don't believe in, all right? I love money, but I love you guys, and I want you to trust me even more than I love money. So I had to try this stuff out to make sure it works before I try to get you to invest in this stuff. And I'm here to tell you, it works, okay? Then you have this lawnmower right here, 3.0, man. This thing right here is crazy. Now, the reason this thing is so awesome is they've revolutionized how you shave it. You shave your parts, whether you're, for me, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not an avid, pubic hair shaver. Okay, that's not my thing, but I'm a hairy guy. I got hair everywhere. And this blade here is so safe for every part of your body, whether you're shaving down low, below the waistline, or you're shaving your chest hairs. I'm heading to Mexico in about a month, and I'm looking to take the shirt off, and I'm trying to get rid of all the taco meat. This lawnmower right here is going to do the trick, okay? Get rid of all of that. So I'm looking to have the chest out with the abs. Hopefully I got some by then. And Manscaped's going to take care of me with that as well. So, and they even threw in a couple of gifts. They said, hey, got a shirt for you. If you can see that right here. They got a shirt for the kid. Threw that in the box. They said, we got you on some briefs. All right. So they threw in a couple of little parting gifts for me. And they said, look, not only are we going to do that, we're going to make sure you got a nice little trendy bag to put all your stuff in. So when you're not using it, you know where to find it. So they hook you up, man. So they take care of you. This stuff, top of the line quality. I love it. Or else I wouldn't be talking to you guys about it. So if you're not a Manscaped user, give it a run. Give it a try. Okay. This stuff is legit. All right. I wouldn't steer you in the wrong direction. So if you haven't already done this, please give Manscaped a try. Check out their product on manscaped.com. Use my promo code LouieT, all right, to get 20% off plus free shipping. Okay. So go to manscaped.com. Use the promo code LouieT, which will get you 20% off plus free shipping, and use that on the Manscaped website so that you can unlock your confidence and make sure you're always using the right tools to do the job. Trust me when I tell you this, your balls will thank you. All right, so let's get to in case you missed it. So I'm telling you right now, this free agency period is going to be bananas. Bananas. Because of this reduced cap, teams are forced to do some things they don't want to do. And I'm going to go through this list of in case you missed it. And then we're going to get to, I think, a direct correlation, a cause and effect of this crazy 2021 salary cap and what that may mean. So we'll talk about that in garbage time. Garbage time. A little bit later on. I do have a super chat I want to go ahead and get to it real quick. From Washington football team to balls. Wow. Oh, well, that's from my man BD. Thank you for the super chat. Hey, we all got balls, man. Most of us, I can't say all of us. Most of us here watching, we got balls. All right. And we need to keep them fresh. You know, it's crazy. I see all these feminine products, all these female products for keeping their below the waist area nice and tidy and clean and fresh. We don't have shit. So, hey, Manscaped's coming to the rescue. That said, let's go and talk about, in case you missed it, Dolphins to cut Kyle Van Noy. All right, but then this was a crazy situation. They opt to not release him and instead try and trade him. So he hasn't technically been released yet. So word came out, hit the street, that Kyle Van Noy was going to be released 1 year into this 4-year deal he signed in the offseason. It was a big get for the Dolphins. They wrestled him away from New England. You know, they're trying to change the culture. Van Noy was supposed to be one of their tone setters and culture changers. He was a team captain. He played well. He battled through an injury. He later divulged that he even had to spend a night in a hospital after a game battling through injuries. He had a hip injury last season. He played through it. He felt disrespected by the Dolphins that they thought so little of him to release him after one season. Seeing what he went through, knowing that he was respected in the locker room, knowing that he was a captain, knowing that he did everything he could to battle through injuries for them, and have it come down to a situation where he became a cap casualty. That said, they then realized, hey, Kyle Van Noy is a pretty big entity out there. If we just cut him, we'll get nothing. It'll save us some money. But why don't we try to trade him? Here's the thing I've always said about trades. Trades are cool, but if I know you're going to release him, I'll take my chances. I want him. How bad do you want him? That's what trades essentially come down to, is how bad you want this player. Because if you're willing to give up draft capital, you really want this guy. You want him bad. But if you're like, hey, I want him, but I'm not going to give you anything for him, I'll just wait till you release him. I know you're going to release him. If you can't trade him, then you're going to release him. And then we'll all have a shot. We'll all be able to make our pitch to Kyle Van Noy. And whomever has the best pitch or wherever he feels like he best fits, whoever has the most money to maybe offer him, whatever he feels like is the best fit for him and his family, he's going to accept that offer. We'd like to think that our situation will be better than the rest. We'll take our chances. So to me, when a team divulges that, hey, I'm going to release this guy, but I'll trade him to you, you've kind of lost all leverage. You know, the only way to me to make a trade happen is for that team to feel like, look, I'm not going to give him to you. I'm not releasing him. You want to trade? I'm open. My ears are open. I'm listening. But we love him. We think this guy's awesome. So you're going to have to change our minds and make us trade him to you. In today's environment with social media and everybody having leaks, it's all but impossible for a guy to get wind of he's on the trading block and not feel some type of way. You know, players are really sensitive in today's era. You know, once they find out they're on the trading block, they want to go. They don't want to stick around. They say, oh, I've been disrespected. I want out of here. So it's hard to keep those things under wraps. But you got to do your best to not allow that stuff to get out of your building so that that guy doesn't feel disrespected or any type of way. But you also need to be able to convey that message to the other teams. Hey, this dude's available if you're looking to trade, but I'm not going to release him. That's the kind of message you should be sending. That's not what happened here. It actually was in the reverse. They were going to release him. Then they realized, hey, what are we doing here? We should trade him. He's got good value out on the streets. There were teams that really wanted him last offseason. He wasn't terrible this year. It's not like this guy was some kind of malcontent in the locker room or he had a really subpar 2020. He was good. He had an injury and he actually performed well for the Dolphins. So his value is still high. Let's see if we can't get something for him. I don't think they're going to get anything for him at this point. But in any event, that was interesting. He's going to end up being released is what I think. And he's going to join what is going to be a very robust free agent crop of players. In case you missed it, none of you missed this. This was big news. I talked about this already on the Louie T Network already. J.J. Watt chooses the Cardinals, 2 years, $31 million. And he gets the number 99. It was retired. I didn't know it was retired in Arizona. Had no clue until, he ended up signing with them and it became this thing. And he's gotten blessings from the family of the player that had the jersey number 99 retired in his honor. And so he's going to get the number 99. There was this rumor that there were other teams that had more money on the table. I don't believe them. I don't believe that. It didn't come from J.J. Watt's mouth. I heard Ian Rappaport, and he's not always right, say that this was the biggest offer. And he said that not only was it the biggest offer, word out on the street was JJ might get 11, 12, maybe 13 million per from somebody. He got 15 and a half from the Arizona Cardinals. Nobody was expecting that number to get that high. So I don't think anybody else was higher than the 31 million over 2 years offered by the Arizona Cardinals. I could be wrong. Ian Rappaport could be wrong. Won't be the first time, but I don't think anybody was outbidding the Cardinals. And I said this already on the show that I did. It's cool. The Arizona Cardinals are cool. Do I think they're in a position to win a Super Bowl? No. Do I think they're going to win it next year or the year after that? No. If you're J.J. Watt, were there other opportunities out there to maybe win and win now? Sure. But he chose the situation that he thought was the best for him, his family, and his chances to win. I don't agree with the latter, the chance to win, because to me, Buffalo gives you the best chance. They got a star quarterback in Josh Allen, and they went to the AFC Championship game last season. They're one or two pieces away from getting over the top. You might have been able to make that difference with that defense. You go to a team that hasn't made the postseason with their new head coach. He's not new anymore. He's going into his third season. They got a young quarterback going into his third season as well. He hasn't made the playoffs. And when they had a chance to make the playoffs last year, he played one of his worst games of the season against the San Francisco 49ers. So I don't know what he saw and what led him to believe that the Arizona Cardinals was his best chance to win a Super Bowl. I think it was about money, personally. And we'll see how everything else goes. But maybe it was about playing inside, playing indoors. He's played his entire career indoors in a controlled environment. Maybe he wanted to continue that. Maybe he didn't want to go and play out in the cold in Buffalo. Maybe he didn't want to do that. I don't know. We'll see. He chose Arizona. We'll see if that works out for him and to what extent. In case you missed it, David Johnson re-signs in Houston on a 1-year deal that could potentially get up to $6 million. This is a really good move for David Johnson. I know we all ridiculed the Texans for the trade that landed him in Houston. It's still a very laughable deal when you take a look at it. You don't trade one of the best receivers in the league for a second-round pick and a running back that hasn't been himself in like 3 years. But that's what they decided to do. He wasn't terrible last year, was David Johnson. He was actually pretty good for the Texans. And it's good to see him potentially finding a new home. It's only a 1-year deal. We'll see what happens. We know how the shelf life of these running backs. But he, to me, has a little bit more tread left on tires, or he should at least, because of missing essentially bits and parts of the last 2 seasons or 2 previous seasons to last year. And I think it's a good situation for him in Houston. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but if it's not Deshaun Watson, he's going to get a lot of touches in Houston in 2021. In case you missed it, Minnesota Vikings released tight end Kyle Rudolph after 10 seasons. This isn't a surprise. We all recall the stare down that these two had just an offseason ago. Wasn't sure if he was going to be back in Minnesota. I thought he was going to ultimately end up elsewhere. Cooler heads prevailed. He stayed in Minnesota. Remember, we talked all last offseason about Kyle Rudolph potentially getting traded, and I talked about him going to New England, and none of that ever came to fruition. He stayed in Minnesota and had another solid season. But they've got a young buck out there at the tight end position in Irv Smith that they're ready to move on and allow him to grow and blossom. So Kyle Rudolph sent packing. They put out this great message on socials, pretty much thanking him for his years of service to their organization. He's been a pillar in that community. He's been an outstanding model of how you should do it. And I think he's still got football left in him. And I'm count me in as a Washington football team fan, as one of the very many interested teams in Kyle Rudolph. Ultimately, if I'm Kyle Rudolph, there's no way in hell I want to go to Washington, because much like I just talked about with J.J. Watt, when you get to that point of your career, it's about winning. And I don't think Washington is remotely close to winning anything of substance. They don't even have a quarterback right now. So if I'm Kyle Rudolph, I'm making a beeline to Seattle. They're always looking for a veteran tight end. Every single year, it seems like they're in the market for a veteran tight end. Last year, it was Greg Olsen. He's since retired. I think they're back in that market again, looking for a veteran. I think Kyle Rudolph may be what the doctor ordered in Seattle. So we move on in case you missed it. Jets GM Joe Douglas says he will, quote unquote, answer the call if the phone rings about Sam Darnold. Now, this is not new news, okay? So I don't want to try and come off as if I'm dropping a gem on your melon and this is some kind of, massive revelation that I'm uncovering here. No, that's not what I'm looking to do. What this does say to me, however, because remember, there's been this conversation about the Jets. Do they stick with Darnold or do they draft a quarterback at number 2? If you're sticking with Darnold, you've got options at 2. You can take the best receiver available because you need to give him some targets if you're going to stick with him, or you could trade back and pick up a bunch of draft capital that will allow you to speed up this process of getting better. If you're not going to stick with Darnold, then you need to move him and you have to select a quarterback at number 2. That was the discussion, and the Jets have played this beautifully by saying, hey, we're going to allow this process to play out. We want to talk to all these young quarterbacks. We want to see what these guys are about, and then we'll make our decision. I think the decision has been long made. They know what they're going to do. They're drafting a quarterback at number 2. I think most people feel that way. I can't speak for anybody else. That's the way I feel. And to me, this statement says that if you're willing to trade, if the phone rings and you're willing to listen, it means you're open to dealing Darnold. If you're really invested in him, then you're not looking to field offers. You're not looking to pick up the phone when it rings and they're talking about Sam Darnold on the other end. But if you're willing to trade him, that means that if the deal is right and you can't pass it up, you'll move him, which means you're hell-bent on taking a quarterback at 2. That's what that tells me. So I said all of that to say this. They're trading Sam Darnold and they're taking a quarterback at number 2. If the GM admits he's listening on the other end, if you're talking about his former franchise quarterback, that means they're going to move on from him and they're going to draft a quarterback. That's what I was able to gain from this. I'm drawing inferences. It's what I do here. Okay, I'm connecting dots. Even though they may not exist yet, I'm connecting dots. That one is very telling if you ask me. So, in case you missed it, I got a super chat. So I'm going to read that one real quick. This one is from William Edwards. Thank you for the super chat. William Edwards, who writes, "Hey Lou, which smells more funky, balls after the gym or the Texans organization? Also, did you see the TD Mariota caught from himself in the offs?" Yes, I did see that. That was a big one against the Chiefs a couple of years ago. And to answer your first question, no doubt about it, it's the Texans organization. As I've mentioned already, my balls smell like mint and julep. I can't speak for anybody else's out there, but the Texans organization is a mess and they stink to high heaven. You can smell them all the way from the opposite coast of the country. They're in a mess right now, and I don't know how they're able to stabilize things because Deshaun Watson sounds like he wants out. It doesn't sound like he's going to play another game there, and they've got no draft capital, and this is the way that they can get it. They still got no cap space. There's a lot wrong with that organization, and forget about all of the things I just talked about on the field, draft capital and cap space and all of that stuff. Forget about that stuff. How about the organization, the front office? It's a mess. It's a mess. So they've got a lot of things they got to clean up if they want that organization to turn around and get back to where they were just 2 years ago as a serious playoff contender in the AFC. In case you missed it, Thomas Davis to retire. A Carolina Panther was released by Washington. Everyone knew that was going to take place. And he had already announced last year on socials that he was going to retire after the season. He's going to sign a 1-day contract with Carolina to retire a Panther. Good for him and well-deserved. And I think ultimately he will go in the Panthers' Ring of Fame if they have one. He was one of their best players over the last decade along with Luke Kuechly. And I always will remember his story because of all of the ACL tears. And I remember pretty much dooming him and his career and saying, it's over, dude. And it takes a special type of individual, similar to like Alex Smith, to be able to overcome that kind of trauma time and time again. And he did it. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Played over a decade in the league. Thomas Davis is an Iron Man, and wish him the best of luck in his next life. But he's set to retire, a Carolina Panther. Good for him. Hell of a career for Thomas Davis. In case you missed it, rumor. Okay, this is a rumor. Rumors. Oh no, rumors. All right. Patriots want Jimmy G back badly. I believe it. Bill Belichick never wanted to trade him in the first place. That was a Robert Kraft move that was spearheaded by Tom Brady. We talked about this years ago. So I'm not surprised that Bill Belichick now looks at his quarterback situation and says, if I only had Jimmy G, we would have this thing going in the right direction. So to me, this has some legs to it because the Patriots desperately need a quarterback. And I know for a fact the 49ers want out of the Jimmy G business. They've continued to try and convince anyone that would listen. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan has continued to try to convince anyone with ears, hey, we love Jimmy G. He's our guy. We're not moving on from him. But if they get the right offer, they will listen. Here's the issue, though. I already talked about this, and this is a life lesson for you guys out there that are in this space in your life right now. You don't quit your job until you have another job, okay? So the 49ers aren't going to quit Jimmy G unless they have someone to replace Jimmy G. They're not looking for Nick Mullins or one of these other backups that they have on their roster to fill that void, because we've already seen that movie multiple times. It always ends in disaster for the 49ers. They need a legitimate signal caller if they are to move on from Jimmy G. And I'll tell you this, here's something that I thought about when I read that the Patriots were rumored to be really interested in getting Jimmy G back. I thought about this. Where are the 49ers in the upcoming draft? Somewhere like 13. I'm going to look it up real quick. Matter of fact, I have it written down in my notes from an old podcast. I'm going to look that up. I'm going to say it's around 13. Let's see where they are in this year's draft. That's not it. All right, let's see. It should be in here somewhere. All right. See, the 49ers are your 12th. I was close. 12th selection in the draft. Okay. So let's say Trey Lance falls to them at 12 and they pull the trigger. I think then and only then would they be interested. And it doesn't have to be Trey Lance. It could be any one of those quarterbacks. If they have a guy in mind, Mac Jones, whomever, it doesn't matter. If they have a guy that they love in this draft and they are able to get their hands on him, I think then and only then will they be willing to trade Jimmy G. And I think New England would be ready to part ways with a first round pick. We've seen them not really, value the first round selection. Similar to the Seattle Seahawks, they don't really, in the Rams, they really don't give a shit about first round picks. Do the New England Patriots. So and they generally don't have too much success with their first rounders any damn way. So I could see them, the 49ers getting Trey Lance and then them saying, all right, New England, I'll give you Jimmy G. Let me get your first round pick next year. Because I think the Patriots, if I'm not mistaken, are ahead of San Francisco. Nope, they're 15th. So that would work out perfect. Or they could say, hey, you draft this guy for us at 15 and we'll swap that guy for Jimmy G and we'll call it even. Now, that's a steep price to pay, but it's quarterback. And so I don't know if Jimmy G's worth a first round pick. I can tell you I wouldn't give up a first round pick for him, but the Patriots are desperate and they think that's their guy. So that's an interesting dynamic there. I'm just putting that out there. I don't know if there's any validity to that or not, but I think the Patriots do want him back, and I think the 49ers are willing to part ways with him, but they have to get something first, and I don't know if they're going to get that or not in the upcoming draft. And so I think that's the question that we all have to ask ourselves. But in any event, in case you missed it, I got another super chat. And again, it's from William Edwards. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, William Edwards. Greatly appreciate you, my man. William Edwards writes, off the beat question, but so much talk about the Dak situation. If he leaves Dallas next year, who do you think is a legitimate destination for him? There are so many teams that are so starved at the quarterback position. It's not even funny. I think a team like Chicago would be willing to give up whatever it takes to get him. I think a team like Washington would be desperate to get a guy like Dak Prescott. I mean, we could go on and on down the list of teams that are looking. The Indianapolis Colts traded for Carson Wentz, but the New England Patriots would love to get their hands on Dak Prescott. I mean, there are so many teams. Like, I don't remember an offseason quite like the one we're embarking upon, because normally there's like 5 to 7 teams that, remember we talked about this on the podcast about a month ago or so? Adam Schefter talked about 18 teams and he took the over on the number. He set the number at 18. He took the over on the amount of teams that would have new starting quarterbacks in 2021. That just tells you the kind of turnover we're going to see at the position. And it also tells you the lack of stability that teams have at that position. So again, Chicago, Washington, I think Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts is cool. Dak Prescott is better. Okay. Again, not everybody has the space to make this happen, but New England is another destination for a guy. The 49ers, I just talked about them wanting to get out of the Jimmy G business. This is an opportunity to do that if they can get Dak Prescott. So there are so many teams that would be lining up to get him. I would put my money on Chicago. If Dak Prescott were to leave Dallas and become a free agent, if he's got any animosity towards the Cowboys, then a team like Washington jumps to the front of the line. If there is no animosity and he's cool, he'd probably go to Chicago. I think Chicago would make every pitch possible to get him, and that's what I would choose. I would put him in Chicago. I think they're the most desperate. They feel like they have to win. They got a coach and a GM that have to win and probably have to win in 2021 to save their jobs. I think that should scare you if you're Dak, going into a situation where you got a lame duck GM and coach. If they don't win, they're fired, and now you're dealing with a situation where you're going to have a brand new staff coming in there. They didn't choose you. I would be a little bit leery of that. I would want more stability if I'm Dak in a place like Washington where you got a coach-centric approach, and if they chose you, they're not going anywhere, and you know that you've got stability. But I don't know if he's taking that into consideration or not. He may think that I'm betting on myself, I'm going to win, and these guys are going to keep their jobs. But, we will see. In case you missed it, Colton Wheeler. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Colton Wheeler, who writes 2 parts. Number 1, is it Fitzmagic time for a Washington football team? That's number 1. Number 2, is it worth it for us to go and get Ertz from Philadelphia? The second, I can already sort of guess your response with limited cap space and Logan Thomas on the roster. We don't have limited cap space. We got plenty of cap space. We're fine in that department. But you do know my answer already. I don't want to trade for Zach Ertz. If he is released from Philadelphia, I would be all over Zach Ertz. But I don't want to trade for Zach Ertz because I feel like you can go out and get you a much younger option at tight end and draft one in the 3rd round. That 3rd round pick that they're probably going to fetch for Zach Ertz, we got 2 of them. We can spend one of those on a tight end in this year's draft, or the 2nd round pick, in this year's draft. If a certain someone is still available at 51, which I don't think he will be, but there are other options and routes you can go versus going out and getting an aging veteran like Zach Ertz. So my answer would be no on trading for Ertz. I'm interested in him. I don't want to trade for him. Your first question, is it Fitzmagic time for Washington? No, I've made this abundantly clear. I want no parts of Ryan Fitzpatrick. There was a rumor out there. We're going to talk about this. Matter of fact, let's do it now. In case you missed it. I tweeted this out. Now, I didn't believe it, but I tweeted it because it's not my job to get you to believe something on socials. Now, if I have something that I believe in, I'm going to pitch you the idea that I have and try to sell you on it here on my platform. But on Twitter or on IG, I see something, I retweet it on Twitter or I repost it on IG, whatever the case may be. There was a tweet about Ryan Fitzpatrick reportedly hanging it up, and this was supposed to be according to John Clayton of former of ESPN, former insider for ESPN, that he was going to hang it up. And because there was a lack of interest in him. And the thing that was really fishy about that report was, first of all, free agency hasn't even started yet. And I get it. Agents are putting their feelers out there. They know what kind of interest their client is going to drum up once the free agency tampering period starts. But there's no way. I just talked about 18 teams potentially, with the Adam Schefter tweet and him taking the over. I took the under, but I said it was 14. That's still a ton of teams that could potentially have new starting quarterbacks in 2021. You don't think that Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't still have value in this league? Are you crazy? He played tremendously last season for the Dolphins, and some would argue that his COVID test at the end of the season is what led them to miss the postseason. If they had him against Buffalo in a game the Bills didn't need, they might have made the playoffs and not the Indianapolis Colts. That's nor here nor there. He can still help someone. I don't want him in Washington. I've stressed this enough because we've got guys on the roster that can fill the Ryan Fitzpatrick void. If you're looking for a stopgap quarterback, we've got 2 of them on the roster already. Or we have one, we'll bring back the other. You can move forward with those guys. If you get the young guy, those 2 guys that I'm speaking of, and Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke can serve as your stopgap for the young guy. You don't need Ryan Fitzpatrick to come in there and become a stopgap for you. So let him go to Chicago, let him go to New England, let him go somewhere else. Well, he'll have a chance, and he wants to start. And he may get that opportunity in Washington. I just don't want any parts of it. I've already talked about the 2 types of quarterbacks I want in Washington this offseason. Upside guy, or I want established, consistent veteran. Ryan Fitzpatrick fits into neither of those categories. I'm good on Ryan Fitzpatrick. But again, he's going to end up somewhere. And that report seems erroneous. I think it was either Rappaport or Schefter. I want to say it was Rappaport that said, look, I don't know where that erroneous report came from. And he didn't mention any names. He didn't mention any Twitter accounts, but he was referencing the tweet that everybody was retweeting. He said, Ryan Fitzpatrick intends to play in 2021. And I believe that to be the case. So thank you for that super chat. And I got another super chat in case you missed it. William Edwards, tripling up. Thank you for the super chat. And thank you for tripling up, William Edwards. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, thanks for the answers. I'm normally driving when your podcast is on, so I can't send super chats. Keep striving for greatness, brother. Hashtag HTTWFT. Hashtag mob. MOBB. Stand up. We in the building. I appreciate you, William Edwards. Don't want you crashing the whip trying to super chat. So I'm glad you were able to be somewhere stationary where you were able to participate with the show. So greatly appreciate you, William Edwards. Thank you so much for the support. In case you missed it, new Broncos GM, George Patton, quote, we want to bring Von back. So one of the guys that we talked about just briefly on the podcast last time, or, a week or 2 before the hiatus, was Von Miller was in a little bit of trouble with the law, potentially, and his girlfriend, and she was pregnant, and there were some, messages exchanged. It got ugly. It was a mess. Was there some issues going on there? I don't know. I don't like to speculate in domestic situations. However, there was that issue. There was that whole piece to the situation in Denver. And then there was his pay coming off of an ACL. Von Miller's 32 years old. This is a reduced cap situation. Could Von Miller become a cap casualty? His name was out there in the streets as a guy that could potentially be released. The Broncos made it abundantly clear, and I said this from day one, I didn't expect him to go anywhere. You don't just get rid of guys like Von Miller. I get it. He's coming off of injury. It gets harder and harder to come back from these as you get older and older, and he's getting up there. But he's still, until he shows you that he's no longer Von Miller, he's still Von Miller. And 32, 33, 34, if you can still get to the quarterback, that's a commodity in this league that never loses value. So for me, they definitely want to bring Von back, and the first thing he talked about was his legal issues. Well, those have been handled. Apparently, charges have been dropped. There's nothing going on with that now, and so I think it all comes down to money. I don't expect Von Miller to be anywhere else but Denver, but again, we will see. In case you missed it, Steelers re-signed Big Ben, lowering his cap number from $19 million to $14 million. Everybody saw this one coming a mile away. This was a 95-mile-an-hour fastball that we were sitting on, knocked it out of the park. I hated the whole narrative that, oh, Ben did the thing to really sacrifice. And then Ben, he felt all of the praise that he was getting, and he decided to piggyback off of it. I'm like, hey, Ben, just sit down and shut up. We don't need you. Like, that's like somebody saying, man, you're a real stand-up guy. You got a lot of class and honor, and then you come out and talk about how much class and honor you have. No, let other people do that. You just sit back and receive the praise, okay? You let people shower you with the praise. It's so classic Ben Roethlisberger to say, yeah, I would do this. I would play for free. He didn't say that, but in so many words, he was like, yeah, this was a no-brainer. I want to help my team, and I would definitely play for much less. Hey, pipe down, dude, okay? All right, when I hear athletes talk about doing this for free, no, you wouldn't, okay? No, you wouldn't do it for free. I understand you love it, and he loves the Steelers. He loves the organization. He doesn't want to play anywhere else. And that's what he was trying to convey. It didn't come out that way necessarily, but who cares? All right, at the end of the day, the bottom line is he's going to be back in Pittsburgh, which we all anticipated was going to happen. No one ever thought he was going to finish his career somewhere else. He's going to be back in 2021. He's going to make a run at it. Him reducing his cap number, and they're going to spread that money out over time, is going to allow them to have a little bit of flexibility. That number that he had initially was crippling, and so this is going to help them out a little bit and give them a chance to maybe make a couple of moves that will help them in 2021 try to bring their 7th title back to Titletown. Well, that's not Titletown. Green Bay's Titletown. To Pittsburgh. Let's just leave it at Pittsburgh. Okay. So, in case you missed it, Washington officially released Alex Smith. Great story. Comeback player of the year. He might be comeback player of the century. Nobody ever anticipated that he'd be able to come back from the injury he sustained in 2018. Made this miraculous comeback. Had Aaron Donald on his back the first game he ever played in a NFL game again, which was insane. Gave him a piggyback ride for like 5 seconds. That kind of showed everybody, hey, if the knee held up against that, he should be just fine. Ultimately helped Washington win the NFC East division. Without him, they don't win the division with all the injuries they had sustained at the quarterback position. It's a great story. I appreciate everything he did for the Washington organization. It didn't end as well as I thought it should have. He had a little bit of hurt feelings. It is what it is. He wants to continue to play. But at $15 million, essentially, he can find work elsewhere, because Washington has a chance in this reduced environment with the cap to recoup $15 million essentially in cap savings. There's no way Alex Smith, who proved to us last year that even at his best, he can't stay healthy for a full 16, maybe even 17 games in an NFL season. So they moved on from him. And I am excited about them moving on from him, but I also am deeply indebted to Alex Smith for him helping this organization, not just with getting to the postseason last year, but also helping turn around the culture in Washington. So many players with just a smattering and a wealth of support for Alex Smith and what he meant to them in that locker room. So Alex Smith is a free agent, and again, I think he's going to be interesting too, because I do think someone is going to be interested in bringing in Alex Smith to help their football team. So, in case you missed it, got another super chat. This one is from Colton Wheeler once again. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Colton Wheeler. Greatly appreciate you. Colton Wheeler writes, I'm reading news on Twitter regarding Derek Carr and being upset that he's involved in trade rumors. Could possibly be another Russ situation where he wants out. If you want Carr, what's your offer? First of all, I don't think Derek Carr wants out of Vegas. I think he is sick and tired of the rumors. Every year, this is a thing. Every single year, this is a thing. And it'd be one thing if Derek Carr stunk, or he was a fringe guy and the Raiders defense was exceptional, but Derek Carr was holding him back. It was quite the opposite. It was contrary to that. I mean, it was the direct opposite of Derek Carr being the problem. He was the reason that they were even in a position to make the playoffs. He was the reason they got off to the 6-3 start. Okay, he was phenomenal. It was his best season of his career last year in 2020. And here comes all these rumors. The only reason you continue to hear these rumors is because there are so many desperate teams out there. And every year we hear the Derek Carr rumors, and he hasn't been traded yet. Their GM, Mike Mayock, who I believe in when he speaks, he's one of those guys that doesn't sugarcoat very often. He said Derek Carr played some of his best football of his career. We love him. He's not going anywhere. I believe him. He doesn't have any reason to lie here. And again, much like I said with the 49ers, okay? You don't move on from your guy unless you have another guy. And the Raiders, they were too good last season to be in a position, unless they're going to trade up. They were too good to be able to snag one of the top 5 quarterbacks, or 4. I shouldn't say 5, even though I feel like Mac Jones is inching his way up towards, the top 15 of this draft. They're in a position where they're not going to more likely than not have one of these guys be available for them. So you don't trade Derek Carr, much like I said with the 49ers, unless you get one of these guys. Then Derek Carr becomes available after that. Okay, you don't trade him before and now you've created a need for your team. You're not going to start Nathan Peterman. I don't care how much John Gruden loves Nathan Peterman. You're not going to go into 2021 with Nathan Peterman penciled in as your starter. Are you crazy? So Derek Carr isn't going to be traded, but I'll humor you for a second. You asked me what would my price be. If the prevailing thought is Derek Carr, first of all, Stafford got you two 1s and a 3, okay? I told you the second one was more so for the Lions to eat Jared Goff's money on his deal. That was them saying, hey, here's another first round for your troubles. We really appreciate what you're doing for us here. You're giving us a guy that's going to give us a chance to win a Super Bowl, and you're taking this money off our hands. Here's another 1 and a 3 additionally for your troubles. We appreciate you. For me, Derek Carr isn't Matthew Stafford. He's a step below that. So I don't think 2 1s is in order, but when you're desperate and there are teams vying for his services, you could have this thing escalate to 2 1s. I wouldn't be willing to part with 2 1s for Derek Carr. All right. Derek Carr is a 1 and a 3 type of guy, a 1 and a 2. Okay, yeah, but 2 1s is too rich for my blood for Derek Carr. But that's what I would be willing to part with. A 1 and a 2, a 1 and a 3. Somebody would be willing to give up 2 1s because there are desperate teams out there. And that's the thing you have to keep in mind, is that New England would look at Derek Carr and say, that's way better than anything we got here. We'll give you 2 1s, because they don't give a shit about first round picks. They'll give you 2 1s in a heartbeat. So again, it's know that it's lying season, number 1. Okay, you know what time of year it is, and I always tell you this every single year. You guys know what's coming. All right, you know what's coming. Believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man, Louie T. You know what time it is. It's lion season, man. Smoke screens are everywhere. It's thick. The smoke is thick, man. I can barely see in front of my face. They lying to you. Derek Carr's not going anywhere. And if I'm wrong, I'll offer up that 00, but I'm not wrong. Thank you for that super chat and doubling up, Colton Wheeler. I got another super chat in case you missed it from Calvin Krim. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Calvin Krim, who writes, hey Lou, what would be your FA strategy for Washington? We're going to talk about that this week on the Washington Football Report. I got a lot of things that I want to discuss, and free agency strategy is going to be one of them. So I don't want to divulge that here on the podcast, but that's something that we're going to talk about this week for sure. So I will keep that in mind, and we will discuss it on Thursday night, Calvin. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. And I also, at this point, want to push you guys to subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so. Please turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And hit that like button, man. It's over 200 of you, only 55 likes. I need this thing to be at 100 before this show is done. So please, if you haven't hit the like button, please, please, please hit the like button. I really do appreciate you guys. In case you missed it, first black female to ref in the NFL, Maya Chaka, is going to make history. Sarah Thomas did it a couple of years ago as the first female. I hate the fact that we have to go distinction here. First black, because we didn't say she was the first white female when Sarah Thomas, she was just the first female. But it is what it is. She's going to be the first black official to referee an NFL game. I'm so excited for Maya Chaka. And the beautiful thing about it is she's from the 757, man. So represent. You know, we bringing it home, man. More prestigious honors coming from out of the 757. We talent rich over here, man. So I'm excited for her. I couldn't be more excited for her. I love that the NFL continues to culturally diversify, even if some of it kind of feels like out of necessity. I don't care. It's preservation because of necessity. Whatever the case may be, I love it. She's put in the work. All right. It's not like she just got elevated from high school officiating. She's put in years of work at the collegiate level. Her time has come, and I look forward to her doing a hell of a job, just like Sarah Thomas has done in the league. Really excited for Maya Chaka, who gets this opportunity to become the first black woman to officiate an NFL game. In case you missed it, Bills re-sign safety Micah Hyde, 2 years, $19.25 million on that extension. I love Micah Hyde. One of my favorite players in the league is Micah Hyde. Loved him when he was a Green Bay Packer. Wanted my Washington football team to sign him as a free agent. He went to Buffalo, made a great decision. Between him and Jordan Poyer, they've got a hell of a tag team back there. Tag team back again and at the safety position. And Micah Hyde, to me, is the straw that stirs that drink back there. Yeah, I know Tre'Davious White is awesome. Okay, one of the best corners in the league, but the safety position is usually the guys that kind of run the show back there, get everybody lined up, and they're the erasers. You can have a tremendous corner, but if your safeties stink, you're going to have some issues, and the Bills are far from issues in their secondary. Part of the reason why is they've got a guy like Micah Hyde. I guarantee you go ask any Bills fan, one of the best free agent signings they've made over the last 7 years, Micah Hyde. They're doubling up on it by re-signing him and extending him out an additional 2 years. He's been fantastic for the Buffalo Bills. In case you missed it, we talked about this at the top of the show. Want to reiterate it though. Broncos to tag safety Justin Simmons. I told you he's my favorite safety to watch as a free safety in this league. There isn't anything he can't do on the field. He can play in the box. He can blitz the quarterback. He can drop over the slot. He's so versatile, which is why the Denver Broncos refused to allow this guy to leave. They slapped the franchise tag on him last year after he made his first Pro Bowl appearance. He doubled up on that, made the Pro Bowl again in 2020, and they said, hey, bruh, we really want you to stay. They haven't been able to come to terms on a long-term agreement. They're still working towards that, but the Broncos have already come out and said there's no suspense here. This is our stuff. Keep your hands off. We're slapping the franchise tag on Justin Simmons. We don't want him playing anywhere else. It's a smart move to me. For as good as they are up front at times when Von Miller is healthy, if Bradley Chubb is healthy, and all the pieces that they can put up front on that defense, it's Justin Simmons on the back end that holds it all together. They need help at the cornerback position, which is why everybody's mocking them to take a corner at the top of the draft where they are. But to me, it falls apart back there if there's no Justin Simmons. So I think that Justin Simmons is a guy that they want to keep in Denver long term. He's 28 years old, and I still think he's got a good 5-6 years of great football left in him. And they understand that as well, which is why they're trying to reach a long-term deal with him. But one of the bigger names at the safety position gone off the board, Justin Simmons, slapped with the franchise tag for a second consecutive year. Broncos looking to reach a long-term deal with him. They've got until July 15th. It's usually the middle of July, 15th, 16th, somewhere in there, to figure all of that out. So let's move on to our next segment. But before we do, got another promo. This one is another one that I firmly believe in, and this is not for everybody. So I talked about never steering you wrong. And I wish somebody gave me the game when I was a youngster coming up in the game. I wish somebody gave me all the game that they had, because I didn't know how important your credit was as a young youth running the streets of Norfolk, Virginia. I didn't know how impactful some of the decisions I was making or not making was going to hurt me or help me down the road. I'm out here running these streets really frivolously, spending this kind of bread and making this decision and making that decision, signing my name on this dotted line and signing my name on that dotted line. And a wise man pulled me aside. It was too late. I didn't already effed up my credit. But he pulled me aside and he said, hey, let me tell you this. If you don't remember anything I tell you, remember this. You want to spend other people's money, not your money. Best way to do that, make sure your credit score is intact. Truer words never have been spoken, okay? So take it from me. Your credit score is everything. It's your lifeline. It's your building block to doing all the things you want to do in life. You want to start a business and you get credit. You know, and you get your own separate account. When you start a business, you get a business account, and you still gotta establish credit with your business. They're not just gonna give you. You get that credit, you get that money for your business based off of your personal credit and your credit score. You want a house? Credit score. Okay. You want a car? They look at your credit score. Everything. You want a couch? I mean, everything comes back to your damn credit score, your rental history, your payment history. All of these things are impacted. And when I heard about what Rental Karma was doing, I said, this is genius. Because what they're doing is, you know, one of the funny things when I was growing up, we would always talk about is everybody wants you to have experience, but nobody actually wants to give you experience. So when you're out there and you're young and you got a credit card, you want a credit card because that's going to help you establish credit. But a lot of times these companies don't want to give you a credit card, especially if you don't have any credit. But this is an opportunity if you're out here and you're renting properties, or you're staying in an apartment, you're staying in a townhouse and you're renting from a rental office, or you're renting a house from someone that owns that house. This is an opportunity to help your credit score, okay? And I can't think of a better way to help boost your credit score with little to no effort. Because everybody, look, you might be late on your car note. You might be late on a jewelry payment. You know, you might be late on your car insurance this month. You might have to push it back. You may be late on the cable, cell phone. You pay your rent on time, though. Okay, I can't speak for everybody out there. Most of us pay our rent on time. And if you're one of the fortunate few to already own, this is not for you. And I want to get where you are. I'm striving to get there. And a website like Rental Karma is going to help you get there. If you are a renter, you should be using rentalkarma.com. Okay, you pay your rent on time. It's going to be reported to all the major credit bureaus. You need to take advantage of this. It's something you do every single month. So why not have it impact your credit score positively in the process? You got to do nothing other than something you do every single month, which is pay your rent on time. and you can see your credit score be boosted upwards of 80 points. And that's significant. The difference between a 580 and a 660 is massive. Okay. Just so you know, the difference between a 620 and a 700 is massive. Hell, the difference between a 620 and a 670 is massive. If it is only boosted 50 points just by paying your rent. A lot of us, I didn't know this before this website, in this app. I didn't know you could boost your credit by simply paying your rent. But if you didn't know, now you know. Go to rentalkarma.com, use the promo code LTN25, get you 25% off their services, and start taking advantage of paying your rent on time. Your credit score matters. Why not have it be boosted by something you do every single month? All right, so let's wrap up the show with garbage time. And I want to kind of tie it into everything we've been talking about on this show. So I want to take it a step back. The overarching theme of this garbage time is the offensive line may get the short end of this reduced cap stick. Okay. But how am I going to bring this all the way back? The Raiders are shopping offensive tackle Trent Brown. They're not the only team looking to move an offensive lineman. As a matter of fact, the Jags are looking to move offensive guard Andrew Norwell. The Giants are looking to move offensive guard Kevin Zeitler. And the Chargers are looking to move offensive guard Trey Turner. In a normal offseason, all of these guys are not on the block. These are Pro Bowl caliber players. These are guys still playing at a very high level. Why are you looking to move big time premier offensive linemen? Yes, they're making good money, but it's not astronomical money. Okay. Trey Turner, $11.3 million on the cap if you were to trade for him. Kevin Zeitler, $14.5 million on the cap. Jags, Andrew Norwell, $15 million. And Trent Brown, $14 million for, when healthy, one of the best right tackles in all of football. So why all of these guys being available? Because teams have to find a way to get under this cap and get into a comfortable position. And so, as I talked about, this is going to be a unique offseason. Let me couple that with the Raiders also having released Gabe Jackson, offensive guard, Richie Incognito, starting offensive guard. So both of their offensive guards, starting guards, released. The Texans released starting center Nick Martin. All right. And don't forget, Brandon Sheriff could be a free agent. If Washington doesn't franchise tag him for the second consecutive year, he'll be out on the market available. Joe Thuney, who was franchise tagged by New England last year, they have no intentions of franchise tagging him again. He's one of the best guards in all of football. He's going to be on the market. So keep in mind that when you look around the landscape of the NFL, the offensive line is being hit the hardest because teams are looking at their cap situation and they're looking at opportunities to trim off fat. And the reason the offensive linemen seem to be the guys that are getting the short end of the stick and are being allowed to be trimmed is because of what happened last year and what's happening this year. You look at the teams last year that had success and you see a bunch of young players drafted coming in on the offensive line and having an immediate impact. And when you see that happen, when you see a guy like Jedrick Wills go to the Browns and have an impact in his rookie season, you see a guy like, what's the offensive tackle? We had like 4 or 5 offensive tackles go, and pretty much every single one of them were outstanding in their rookie seasons, with the exception of the Giants taking Andrew Thomas. Outside of him, every one of those, Tristan Wirfs was a rock at right tackle for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They won the Super Bowl. He protected Tom Brady's front side and did a fantastic job of doing it. And even to take it back a step, and when you look at all these guards, you look at the Dolphins, and they drafted the kid from, God dang it, I want to say the Raging Cajuns is the name of the nickname for the school. One of those Louisiana, it's not Tech, it's one of those Louisiana schools. And they drafted a kid, and he was looked at as a tackle, switched him to guard, and he was outstanding. Pushed him inside, magnificent for them. The Seahawks took a guard, and in the later rounds, third or fourth round, whatever it was, he was outstanding for them. Bunch of teams got more than they bargained for with young players that were rookies, last year, that came in and did a bang-up job for them. Dolphins, look at their offensive line. I just talked about one of those guys. They drafted the tackle out of USC. They did a lot of things. They drafted the kid Solomon Kinley out of Georgia in like the third round. And he came in and played guard for him and was outstanding. You look around the NFL landscape and you see all these teams having success with young offensive linemen, and you're saying, why am I paying this guy $13, $14, $15 million? So they're looking at and then look at this year's draft. Look at all the players that are going to be available via offensive tackle or guard or center. And we talked about 4 or 5 of these tackles going in the first round, like we usually talk about every single year. And nothing's different this year. It's a bunch of young studs coming up in the game. And teams are looking at all of these young, talented offensive linemen, whether they're tackles or interior offensive linemen, and they're saying, why can't we get our hands on one of these guys and move on from a guy that's costing us $13, $14 million? So I think that the offensive linemen are getting the short end of this stick. And not only are they getting the short end by getting released or being on the trading block, if they were to get cut, because again, I told you, if you are putting a player on the trading block, 9 times out of 10, that means you're willing to cut this guy. You're on the verge of cutting him. You're just trying to see if you can get something for him on the way out. So if all of these guys flood the market, what do you think that does to their value? And also take into consideration that you have to look at the draft and know that if I don't get a guy in free agency or they're asking for too much money, there's always the draft that I can fall back on. These guys are going to be put in a really tough spot. To me, I've said this all along. I've advocated for this. Take a 1-year deal in 2021. Take a 1-year deal, okay? And then you go back after it next year. And so if you look at all of these, this is a really robust offensive lineman market. You know, there's tackles galore for the first time in a long time where you can get the Bears are cutting Bobby Massey. They're not going to bring him back. That's another free agent tackle on the market. I'm not saying he's top-notch, top quality, but you can do a lot worse than Bobby Massey, okay? And, you know, Villanueva of the Steelers, there's a bunch of these guys that are going to be available. And I'm just saying, with all of these players flooding the market, it's going to bring their value way down. So you're not going to get as much as you probably would have in a normal offseason. Because not only are there a bunch of you to choose from, if you're asking for too much, I can go to the next guy and tell him I want to pay him a little bit less. And if somebody's going to say yes, and if none of you are willing to take these offers, let's just get one of these young boys in the draft. Just get one of these young boys in the draft. So I feel like the offensive linemen are going to get the short end of this reduced cap stick, man. And it's amazing. I've never seen this many quality offensive linemen walking the streets at once. Normally, there's 1 or 2 guards, there are 1 or 2 tackles, and everybody's fighting over them, and that drives up the value. You know? That's not what we're getting this year. Jack Conklin was the big tackle last year. If you wanted a tackle, Jack Conklin was your man. The Browns outbidded everybody, got Jack Conklin. He was outstanding. He was an all-pro this past year. The Browns made it all the way to the divisional round. Part of the reason why their offensive line was lights out with Jedrick Wills on that offensive line. as their blindside left tackle protector. Okay? So that's generally how it looks in free agency. One guy, 5 teams vying for his services. That's not how it's going down this year. You're going to have 7 premier guards potentially available, and teams are going to be saying, all right, look, it's a bunch of you out here. I don't have to overpay. And we don't have a bunch of money to overpay anyway. What are you going to do? Are you going to take this deal, or are you going to stand out here and wait for somebody to give you something that may not be coming? So, I don't know. We're going to see. This, I told you, it's a storm outside, man, that's brewing that no player is safe from. And these offensive linemen may be standing outside without an umbrella. Don't want to catch a break. Might be too late for some of them. We shall see. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, on this 142nd installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me real quick once more. If you haven't already done so, please, please, please subscribe to the Louie T Network. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And to also, please hit the like button. We are 16 likes away from 100. I need to get to 100. There are 160 of you out there. Please hit the like button if you haven't already done it. Greatly appreciate you for that in advance. With that said, I'm back like cook crack. We'll be back on the Louie T Network podcast on Wednesday, and we will have my top 23 free agents of the upcoming 2021 free agent frenzy. So we'll talk about other guys as well that just missed the list, because there are so many players that are going to be not on that list, but are going to be highly sought after. And I'll tell you about some guys that may ultimately be some gems. And we'll do a number of different things, because I think, again, this is going to be one of the more rare free agent periods that we've ever seen in NFL history. And I think a lot is going to happen. And we're still not done with guys getting released or having to take restructured deals or pay cuts. And if they don't do that, they're going to get cut. So we'll see what the hell happens. I got a super chat here on the way out from my man Kevin, the PRF. Thank you for the super chat, Kev, who writes, Brandon Sheriff's lawyer is on the phone. He wants you to shut up. He wants me to not only shut up, he wants me to shut the hell up. Okay. I'm driving down. I'm single-handedly trying to drive down the price of Brandon Sheriff in free agency. But that's not what I'm looking to do. I'm just spitting truth, the reals. I mean, this is a flooded market. Now, the thing about his situation that's unique is all of that is cool. You know, Zeitler and Norwell and Trey Turner, all these guys potentially being available. All that's cool. They didn't play in Washington. They don't have any rapport with the guys in the locker room, and they're not a team captain in Washington. They haven't established themselves amongst their peers in that locker room. So he does have a standing in Washington. There is something to be said about paying guys and taking care of guys that have done it the right way for you in your locker room. You're trying to change the culture. Brandon Sheriff is a culture changer. That said, how much is too much to help change your culture? That's the question that they have to wrestle with. And he's got an injury history. I love Brandon Sheriff. I want him back. I've already made this abundantly clear. What I don't want them to do is slap the franchise tag on him. However, but in a situation like this, where I just advocated for a 1-year deal, it would be in Brandon Sheriff's best interest to, once again, get a franchise tag and then hit the market when there will be much more dollars to spend for these teams in a much more elevated cap situation. So we'll see. His lawyer, his agent may be telling me to shut the hell up, but he might also be saying, hey, he's talking some real shit. Maybe we should just take this franchise tag and keep it pushing. I can tell you this. There was once this thought process that, Brandon Sheriff was in a position of power. He may not be all of a sudden with all of these teams. And I don't know if the Giants are going to release Kevin Zeitler, or the Jags are going to release Andrew Norwell, or the Chargers are going to release Trey Turner. They may just be looking to shop these dudes, but if they can't get anything for them, they're going to hold on to them. But if those guys become available, a guy like Brandon Sheriff, if he doesn't want to take a deal that they're offering him, they can just hit the market and sign one of these guys instead. So we'll see what the hell's going to happen. It's a unique situation. It's a unique offseason. And Bart Scott can't wait to see what's going to happen. In any event, it's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Feels good to be back behind the mic where I belong. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys later on in the week. We'll be back Wednesday talking free agency and whatever else news has surfaced. Until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. I'll see you next time. You guys, take care. Have a good one.
LouieTeeNetwork.